He never loved me. I can tell you that right now, the way one loves. He loved in his own way, which is not too good. And so he had no respect for me.
She was a Hollywood trailblazer, the fantasy of millions, and the woman who captivated some of the most powerful men in the world. For decades, Angie Dickinson projected an image of unbreakable cool. She was the sharp-witted Feathers in Rio, Bravo, and the tough-as-nails Sergeant Pepper Anderson in Policewoman. Her public persona was one of complete control, a woman who held her own against legends like John Wayne, Marlon Brando, and the entire Rat Pack. But behind that famous smile and those legendary friendships, a totally different story has started to bubble up in recent years, pieced together from whispers, old headlines, and a whole lot of sensationalist YouTube videos. It's a story of secret betrayals, deep resentments, and powerful men who allegedly made her life a living hell. A narrative has popped up that suggests that now, in her 90s, Angie Dickinson is finally naming names, the men she supposedly hated most. This has become a popular tale, a story of a Hollywood icon finally getting her revenge. But is any of it true? Did Angie Dickinson really make a hate list? Or is the reality a lot messier than a simple lineup of feuds? Today, we're separating the rumors from the reality. We'll explore the stories that have been told about these 6 men and their relationships with Angie Dickinson, the allegations of control, disrespect, and betrayal. But we'll also look at what's been documented, what Angie herself has actually said on the record, and how the complicated truth has been flattened into a simple, dramatic, and maybe even dishonest narrative of pure hatred. These are the stories of the top 6 men Angie Dickinson reportedly hated, and the often shocking truths she navigated for a lifetime. The story you've probably heard paints a very clear picture of Angie Dickinson and Burt Reynolds. According to this narrative, their time together was ruined by his chauvinistic attitude. The rumor is that Reynolds was a man who, in Angie's supposed words, liked women who stayed in their place. And she just wasn't one of them. This alleged feud supposedly landed him on her personal blacklist as a man whose constant flirting crossed the line from charming to just plain uncomfortable. The bad blood is said to have started on the set of their 1969 Western, Sam Whiskey. While they had chemistry on screen, the story goes that behind the scenes, Reynolds' machismo was out of control. He was at the peak of his swagger, and the rumors claim he treated Dickinson less like a respected colleague and more like just another conquest. A pretty face to banter with, but not an artist to be taken seriously. This version of events ends in a decades-long grudge, a resentment so deep that Dickinson would supposedly name him as one of the men she couldn't stand. It's a great story of a powerful woman standing up to the sexism of her time. The only problem? It appears to be almost completely made up. When you look at the actual public record, a totally different story emerges. Far from expressing hatred, Angie Dickinson has always spoken about Burt Reynolds with warmth and humor. She was never quoted saying he wanted women to stay in their place. In fact, she often seemed to enjoy his roguish charm. They even worked together again in the 1995 thriller The Maddening, long after their supposed feud began. In an interview with People magazine after Reynolds' death in 2018, Dickinson shared genuinely fond memories. She set the record straight on their relationship, stating, "We went out a few times, but it was not a real romance. We got along great, and we really enjoyed being together." That hardly sounds like language you'd use for a man on a hate list. She went on to call him glorious and one of the funniest men I was ever around. And maybe most tellingly, she recalled a vulnerable moment she shared with him after his painful public breakup with Sally Field. She found him in his dressing room after a Tonight Show appearance, where he opened up about his heartbreak. He was in agony over that, she said. He couldn't hide it. He was very, very free with his laugh, and he was free with showing his emotions. That's not a description of a shallow chauvinist. It's the description of a complex man she considered. A friend, so where did the hate narrative come from? It seems to be a classic case of creating drama where there wasn't any. Reynolds's public persona as a swaggering ladies' man made him an easy target for this kind of story, and Dickinson's reputation as a strong woman made her the perfect hero to have put him in his place. The reality seems to be a fun, friendly relationship built on mutual respect. The narrative about Angie Dickinson's relationship with Lee Marvin is all about lasting pain, supposedly caused by public humiliation and nonstop cruelty. According to these stories, Marvin, famous for his tough guy roles, was just as intimidating off-screen. The main allegation is that Marvin's sharp temper was often aimed right at Dickinson, making her feel small and disrespected. One particularly nasty story that keeps making the rounds involves a dinner party. The story goes that in front of their friends, Marvin went on a tirade, belittling Dickinson's talent with a series of cruel jokes, leaving her completely humiliated. This wasn't just a work disagreement, it was a personal attack. The claim is that this incident left such a deep scar that Dickinson never forgave him, earning him a permanent spot on her supposed list of most hated men. It's a chilling picture of a talented but volatile star. But, just like the stories about Burt Reynolds, there's practically no evidence to back up this bitter feud. In fact, the evidence we do have points to a professional relationship defined by respect and a powerful creative partnership, especially on their classic 1967 film, Point Blank. Point Blank is a cult classic, celebrated for its style and the incredible on-screen chemistry between Marvin and Dickinson. It's tough to believe that such an electric partnership was fueled by genuine off-screen cruelty. In a 1969 interview, Dickinson talked about working with Marvin on both The Killers and Point Blank. She praised his uniqueness and his great face, calling his look fantastic. More importantly, when she talked about disagreements on set, she framed them as part of the creative process, not personal attacks. She said, even if you have a fight with them on the set about how a scene should be done, even then, you like him. That doesn't sound like a woman describing someone she hated. It sounds like a professional talking about the normal tensions of working with a strong-willed co-star. There are no credible interviews or biographies where Dickinson describes this humiliating dinner party or talks about Marvin with the kind of hatred the rumors suggest. While Marvin was known to be a heavy drinker and could be difficult, the story of a targeted campaign of cruelty against Angie Dickinson seems to be a huge exaggeration, if not a total fabrication. The story of Angie Dickinson's feud with a director named Robert Webb is probably the most confused and provably false rumor on the list. The narrative describes a bitter conflict with a director named Robert Webb that nearly ruined her career. It's a classic Hollywood story. Powerful man gets rejected by a beautiful actress and vows revenge. According to this tale, Dickinson turned down Webb's romantic advances, and he retaliated by trying to sabotage her career. The claim is that this Robert Webb was cold and dismissive, treating her like she was disposable and shutting down all of her creative ideas. The story ends with the allegation that he blacklisted her from certain projects, causing a downturn in her film career. It paints Angie as the victim of a vindictive man in a male-dominated town. There's just one massive problem with this story. Angie Dickinson never had a major professional relationship with a director named Robert Webb. The story is a complete fabrication built on mistaken identity. The powerful figure Dickinson did have a pivotal and sometimes tense relationship with was Jack Webb, the creator of Dragnet and the executive producer of her star-making TV show, Policewoman. There's no record of a Robert Webb directing her or feuding with her. It seems gossip channels either confused Jack Webb with someone else or just made up a name. Jack Webb was the man who gave Angie Dickinson the role of Sergeant Pepper Anderson, which made her a household name and won her a Golden Globe. Their relationship was strictly professional, Webb was a famously no-nonsense producer, but there's zero credible evidence he ever tried to sabotage her career. In fact, he gave her the biggest platform of her career. Policewoman was a massive hit and the first successful hour-long drama starring a woman, all produced under Webb's company. The idea that he, or some fictional Robert Webb, destroyed her career is just plain absurd. She was the star of one of the biggest shows on TV, a success for which Jack Webb was largely responsible. This rumor is a perfect example of how easily misinformation spreads. The truth is that Jack Webb was a key part of Angie Dickinson's greatest success. The story of a feud with a Robert Webb isn't just an exaggeration, it's pure fiction. We're halfway through our list, and we've already seen how the simple idea of hate falls apart under scrutiny. From a good friend in Burt Reynolds to an instrumental producer in Jack Webb, the real stories are far more complicated than the rumors let on. What do you think about how these stories get so twisted? Let us know in the comments. And if you're enjoying this dive into Hollywood fact versus fiction, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications because the stories are about to get even more intense. Now, back to the list. The rumored feud between Angie Dickinson and Johnny Carson is told as a story of deep personal betrayal. For years, Dickinson was one of Carson's favorite guests on The Tonight Show. Their on-air chemistry was electric, a mix of witty banter, playful flirting, and real affection. The rumors claim this chemistry continued off-screen in a romance that ended so badly that Carson used his power to punish her. The most explosive part of this story revolves around the TV show This Is Your Life. The story goes that producers ambushed Dickinson for a tribute episode, but she flat out refused to participate, feeling it was a cheap trap. The narrative claims that her refusal infuriated powerful people, including her supposed friend, Johnny Carson. As punishment, Carson allegedly banned her from The Tonight Show. Suddenly, one of his most popular guests was gone for good. This story paints Carson as a vindictive man who couldn't take rejection. Once again, this dramatic tale is a major distortion of the facts. Let's start with the "This Is Your Life" incident. It did happen, and Dickinson did refuse to do it. In a 2019 interview, she explained why. She was tricked into going to the studio, thinking she was being interviewed about director Brian De Palma. When the host surprised her, she felt betrayed. "I looked around, and I was as if I was stabbed in the back," she recalled. "And I said, 'Oh, no, it's not.'" Her objection was about the ambush, not her ego. But did Johnny Carson ban her because of it? Dickinson herself has wondered about that, but more with curiosity than bitterness. In that same interview, she said, "I think they banned me because I walked out on This Is Your Life." The key word there is think. She presents it as a theory, not a fact. There's no independent evidence of an official ban. It's just as likely that booking patterns on the show simply changed over time. As for their romance, Dickinson confirmed they did date, but she never described a dramatic breakup. When asked who ended it, she gave a simple answer: "Things happen." This isn't the language of a woman scorned. In fact, she later starred in a TV series called Cassie and Comedy, which was produced by Johnny Carson's own company. She even said, at the time, "It was the Carson Company I'm doing it for, Johnny Carson. And I suppose part of it is my deep affection for him." It's pretty hard to believe a woman who truly hated a man for betraying her would then star in his TV show, citing her deep affection for him as a reason. The story of a vindictive ban seems to be another case of connecting unrelated dots to create a juicier narrative. Unlike the other men on this list, the conflict between Angie Dickinson and her ex-husband, the legendary songwriter Burt Bacharach, isn't based on rumors. Their painful marriage is well documented, and Dickinson herself has spoken with heartbreaking honesty about the unhappiness she went through. However, saying she hated him simplifies a relationship that was far more tragic and complex. The story of their marriage, which lasted from 1965 to 1981, often focuses on Bacharach's constant cheating. And that was definitely a huge problem. In his own autobiography, Bacharach admitted to being unfaithful, something Dickinson confirmed was incredibly painful. The sensationalist narrative frames this as a simple case of a cheating husband and a wronged wife who grew to hate him for it. But the real story is so much deeper. In one of her most revealing interviews, she gave a devastating summary of their marriage. "He never loved me. Not the way one loves," she stated. "He loved in his own way, which is not too good, and so he had no respect for me." This wasn't just about cheating. It was about a profound loneliness inside the marriage itself. The tragedy was magnified by the challenges they faced raising their daughter, Nikki. Born 3 months premature, Nikki battled health issues and was later diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. The strain of caring for a child with such complex needs is immense for any couple, and Dickinson has said it was a battle she often fought alone. While she famously arranged her policewoman's schedule to be home for her family, Bacharach was often distant and lost in his work. This emotional abandonment during the toughest time of her life seems to be the real source of her deepest wounds. Their daughter Nikki tragically died by suicide in 2007 at age 40. This unimaginable loss forever defined the Bacharach years as a period of profound sadness for Dickinson. To label her feelings for him as hate just doesn't do justice to the complexity of their shared history. They were bound together by a soured love, professional pressures, and most of all, by the love and tragic loss of their only child. While she has been honest about the pain he caused her, her words are filled more with a deep, lasting sadness than with fiery hate. Topping the list of men Angie Dickinson supposedly hated is the one man she has also called the love of my life, Frank Sinatra. No other relationship in her life has sparked more rumors and speculation. The hate narrative paints a terrifying picture of Sinatra as a controlling, possessive partner who tried to ruin her career when he couldn't have her all to himself. According to these sensational stories, their decade-long on-and-off relationship was fear disguised as love. The stories claim Sinatra was pathologically jealous, exploding in a rage after she filmed an on-screen kiss and declaring, "You are mine. No one touches you." From there, the allegations get even more dramatic. Sinatra supposedly had her followed, banned her from seeing male friends, and used his power to sabotage her career by threatening directors. This narrative presents Sinatra as a monster who built a golden cage around her. This version of their story is definitely dramatic, but it's a massive distortion of how Dickinson has always described their relationship. While she never denied his difficult side, her public statements have consistently been filled with deep, enduring love. In a 2023 interview at age 91, she smiled when his name was mentioned and said, "Well, he's the love of my life." He was an extraordinary talent, but he was also an extraordinary man. He was difficult, wonderful, brave, and foolish. These are not the words of a woman who hated him or lived in fear. Dickinson confirmed they almost got married in 1964. The reason they didn't, according to her, was a clear-eyed understanding that they just wouldn't work as a married couple. In fact, she said she actively avoided a proposal because she couldn't stand the thought of turning him down. "I actually didn't want to marry him," she told CBS Sunday Morning, "so I didn't want to say no to Frank Sinatra." That's the story of a woman making a smart, self-aware choice, not a victim escaping a cage. The rumors about career sabotage are completely baseless. There are no credible sources where Dickinson accuses Sinatra of getting her blacklisted. She had a thriving career throughout the 60s and 70s, becoming one of the biggest TV stars of the era on Policewoman. It just doesn't make sense that a man as powerful as Sinatra was actively trying to ruin her career while she was achieving her greatest success. The truth is, Their relationship was far too complex for a simple love versus hate label. He was a challenging man, but he was also the man she loved most. The story of hate seems to be a modern attempt to twist their epic, complicated romance into a simple narrative of a toxic relationship. But Angie Dickinson has never played the victim. She has always portrayed herself as a woman who loved a magnificent, difficult man and was wise enough to know that their great love affair should never become a marriage. So, after looking at these 6 stories, what's the verdict? The sensational headline, "Top 6 Men Angie Dickinson Hated the Most," is great clickbait, but it's fundamentally untrue. There is no evidence that Angie Dickinson ever released a hate list or that she holds a deep-seated hatred for most of these men. Instead, we find that friendly and professional relationships with men like Burt Reynolds and Lee Marvin were twisted into feuds to create drama. A villain named Robert Webb was seemingly invented out of thin air. And with Johnny Carson, a professional change and the end of a romance were spun into a tale of spiteful revenge, a theory even Dickinson herself isn't sure about. The 2 most powerful relationships, with Burt Bacharach and Frank Sinatra, were rooted in genuine, profound emotion. But even there, hate is the wrong word. Her feelings about Burt Bacharach are defined by the sadness of a failed marriage and the unimaginable grief of losing a child. And her relationship with Frank Sinatra was the romance of her life, a passionate, impossible love that she chose to walk away from, not out of hate, but out of a powerful sense of who she was. This journey doesn't reveal a woman consumed by bitterness, but one of incredible grace. Angie Dickinson navigated a notoriously tough, male-dominated industry for over 5 decades. She forged her own path, made her own choices, and has always talked about her past with a stunning mix of honesty and dignity. The stories of her supposed hate list say a lot more about our modern appetite for celebrity drama than they do about Angie Dickinson. The truth, as it so often is way more interesting. What do you think is the biggest misconception about Angie Dickinson's life? And which of these debunked stories surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the true stories behind Hollywood's greatest legends. Thanks for watching.